Picture this. You're renovating your basement. You knock down a wall and find another room. Then another. And another. Before you know it, you've discovered an entire underground city that's been hiding beneath your feet for over 1,000 years. Sounds crazy, right? Well, that's exactly what happened to a man in Turkey back in 1963. What he found wasn't just a basement or a cellar. It was Derinkuyu, an underground metropolis so massive it could house 20,000 people. We're talking about 18 floors going down into the earth, complete with schools, churches, kitchens, and even a complex ventilation system that still works today. This place was like an ancient shopping mall, but underground and way cooler. For centuries, this incredible city remained completely hidden from the world above. Families lived their entire lives down there. Children were born, grew up, and had their own kids without ever seeing sunlight. It's like something straight out of a movie, except it's 100% real. Today, we're going underground to explore one of humanity's most incredible achievements. We'll uncover how thousands of people survived in complete darkness, why they built this massive city, and the shocking secrets that archaeologists are still discovering today. Trust me, by the end of this video, you'll never look at your basement the same way again. Let's go back to 1963. A regular guy in the small town of Derinkuyu, Turkey, was doing some home improvements. Nothing fancy. Just knocking down a wall in his basement to make more space. But when that wall came down, instead of finding more dirt or rock, he found something that would blow his mind. There was a tunnel. A real, man-made tunnel that seemed to go on forever. Now, most people might have just blocked it up and pretended they never saw it. But not this guy. He grabbed a flashlight and decided to explore. What he found was incredible. The tunnel led to a room. That room led to another tunnel. That tunnel led to more rooms. It was like a massive underground maze, and every step he took revealed something more amazing than the last. Within hours, he realized he wasn't just looking at a few extra rooms. This was something huge. Something that had been built with incredible skill and planning. The walls were carved directly from the soft volcanic rock, and everything was perfectly preserved. Word spread quickly through the town. Soon, archaeologists and researchers from around the world were rushing to Derinkuyu to see what had been discovered. What they found exceeded everyone's wildest expectations. This wasn't just an underground shelter or a simple hideout. It was a complete city, carved entirely from rock, going down 18 levels into the earth. We're talking about 280 feet deep. That's like a 25-story building, but going down instead of up. The size was mind-blowing. The city covered an area of about 4 square miles underground. To put that in perspective, that's bigger than most towns above ground. It had everything a city needed: living spaces, food storage areas, communal kitchens, chapels, schools, and even wineries. But here's the crazy part. This city had been completely forgotten by the modern world. No maps showed it. No local stories mentioned it. It was like it had been erased from history, waiting patiently underground for someone to accidentally stumble upon it. The discovery made headlines around the world. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know, who built this incredible underground city? When was it built? And most importantly, why did thousands of people choose to live their entire lives in complete darkness? As archaeologists began exploring deeper into the city, they realized they were looking at one of humanity's most impressive engineering achievements. The level of planning and skill required to build something like this was extraordinary. Every tunnel, every room, every ventilation shaft had been carefully designed and carved by hand. The more they explored, the more questions arose. How did they get rid of waste? How did they get fresh air? How did they grow food? How did they defend themselves? The answers to these questions would prove to be even more incredible than the discovery itself. What do you think you would do if you found a tunnel in your basement? Would you explore it or block it up? Let me know in the comments below. Now here's where things get really mind-blowing. When experts started studying Derinkuyu, they couldn't believe what they were seeing. This wasn't just a bunch of caves that people happened to live in. This was an incredibly advanced piece of engineering that would be impressive even by today's standards. Let's start with the ventilation system, because honestly, it's probably the most incredible part of the whole city. Imagine trying to get fresh air to 20,000 people living 280 feet underground. Sounds impossible, right? Well, somehow, the builders of Derinkuyu figured it out. They created over 15,000 ventilation shafts throughout the city. These weren't just simple holes in the ground. They were carefully designed air channels that created a perfect circulation system. Fresh air flowed down from the surface, circulated through every level of the city, and stale air was pushed back up to the surface. The crazy part? This ventilation system still works perfectly today, over 1,000 years later. When you walk through Derinkuyu now, you can feel the air moving. It's not stuffy or stale like you'd expect in an underground space. It's actually quite comfortable. But how did they do it without electricity or modern tools? They used something called the stack effect. Basically, they understood that hot air rises and cold air sinks. By carefully positioning their air shafts and creating the right temperature differences, they could make air flow naturally throughout the entire city. Water was another huge challenge. You can't survive without water, and you definitely can't support 20,000 people without a reliable water source. The builders solved this by digging wells that went down to underground water sources. Some of these wells were over 180 feet deep, and they provided clean, fresh water to every level of the city. They also created an incredible water distribution system. Channels carved into the rock carried water from the main wells to storage areas throughout the city. They even had overflow systems to prevent flooding. It's like they had their own underground plumbing system, centuries before modern plumbing was invented. Food storage was another masterpiece of engineering. They carved out huge storage rooms with specific temperature and humidity controls. Some rooms were perfect for storing grain. Others were ideal for wine. They even had refrigeration areas that stayed naturally cool year-round. But here's something that will blow your mind. They had a communication system. Throughout the city, they carved small holes that allowed people to talk to each other from different levels. You could be on level 5 and have a conversation with someone on level 12. It was like an ancient intercom system. The defense systems were equally impressive. They created massive rolling stone doors that could seal off entire sections of the city. These stones weighed several tons each, but they were so perfectly balanced that one person could roll them into place from the inside. Once sealed, it was nearly impossible to break through from the outside. They also built trap systems and narrow passages that would confuse and slow down any invaders. Some tunnels were so narrow that only one person could crawl through at a time, making it easy for defenders to stop large groups of attackers. The precision of the carving work is something that still amazes experts today. Every wall, every ceiling, every floor was carved by hand using simple tools. Yet the measurements are incredibly accurate, and the structural integrity has lasted for over 1,000 years. What's your favorite engineering marvel from Derinkuyu? The ventilation system? The water distribution? Or maybe the rolling stone doors? Drop a comment and let me know. Okay, so we know how they built this incredible underground city. But what was it actually like to live there? How did families survive day after day in complete darkness? How did they work, eat, sleep, and raise their children without ever seeing the sun? The answer is both fascinating and a little bit heartbreaking. Life in Derinkuyu was incredibly organized and efficient, but it was also a life of survival, not comfort. Let's start with where people slept. The city had hundreds of small family rooms carved into the rock walls. These weren't spacious apartments. They were more like small caves just big enough for a family to sleep in. Most rooms could fit about 4 to 6 people, and families would hang curtains or use wooden dividers to create a bit of privacy. The beds were simple stone platforms covered with animal skins and blankets. Not exactly comfortable by our standards, but when you're hiding from enemies above ground, comfort isn't your biggest concern. Children often slept with their parents, both for warmth and because space was limited. Food was a constant challenge. They couldn't exactly run to the grocery store, so everything had to be planned perfectly. The city had large communal kitchens on several levels where families would take turns cooking meals. They used oil lamps and small fires for cooking, and the ventilation system carried away the smoke. Most of their food was stored grain, dried meats, and preserved vegetables. They also made bread daily. Archaeologists found several bakeries with large stone ovens. Wine was incredibly important too, not just for drinking, but because it was safer than water and helped preserve food. Here's something interesting. They kept animals underground too. Cows, goats, and chickens lived on the lower levels of the city. This provided fresh milk, eggs, and occasionally meat. The animal areas were connected to the ventilation system to keep the air fresh, and waste was carefully managed to prevent disease. Children growing up in Derinkuyu had a very different childhood than kids today. They never played outside. They never saw rain, snow, or sunshine. Their entire world was tunnels, rooms, and oil lamps. Yet somehow they adapted. Kids helped with daily chores from a very young age. They carried water, helped with cooking, and learned the layout of the city. This was crucial because getting lost in Derinkuyu could literally be a matter of life and death. Children became expert navigators, able to find their way through the maze-like tunnels even in complete darkness. Education happened in small groups. Adults would teach children reading, writing, and basic math using oil lamps for light. Religious education was extremely important too. The city had several underground churches where families would gather for services and children would learn about their faith. Work was divided among all the residents. Some people maintained the ventilation shafts. Others managed water distribution. Some were responsible for food storage and preparation. Others worked as guards, watching the entrances and operating the defense systems. There were even specialized jobs like blacksmiths who made tools and weapons, and craftspeople who created pottery and textiles. Everyone had a role to play in keeping the city functioning. But perhaps the most challenging aspect of underground life was the psychological impact. Imagine never seeing natural light. Never feeling the wind on your face. Never seeing the stars or watching a sunset. Many residents probably suffered from what we'd now recognize as depression or anxiety. The community dealt with this by staying very close-knit. Families supported each other, and community gatherings were frequent. Music and storytelling were incredibly important for maintaining morale. People would gather in larger rooms to sing, dance, and share stories, creating moments of joy in an otherwise difficult existence. Marriages still happened in Derinkuyu. Babies were born. People lived full lives. But everything happened in artificial light, in carved stone rooms, surrounded by the constant knowledge that enemies might be waiting above ground. The average person might spend months or even years underground during times of danger. Some children were born in Derinkuyu and might not see the surface world until they were teenagers. It's hard to imagine how that would affect a person's understanding of the world. What do you think would be the hardest part of living in Derinkuyu? Never seeing sunlight? The cramped living spaces? Or something else? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Alright, here's the million-dollar question. Why would anyone choose to build such an incredible underground city? Why would thousands of people voluntarily live their entire lives in darkness? The answer involves religious persecution, brutal invasions, and a fight for survival that lasted for centuries. To understand why Derinkuyu was built, we need to go back about 1,400 years to when this region of Turkey was part of the Byzantine Empire. The people living here were mostly Christians, and they were about to face one of the most terrifying periods in their history. Starting around the 7th century, Arab armies began invading the region. These weren't just military conquests, they were religious wars. The invading armies wanted to convert everyone to Islam, and those who refused faced slavery, death, or forced conversion. For the Christian communities in this area, it was literally a matter of life and death. But here's where it gets interesting. These people didn't just run away or give up. Instead, they came up with one of the most incredible survival strategies in human history. They decided to disappear completely by going underground. The soft volcanic rock in this region was perfect for carving. It was easy to dig through but strong enough to create stable tunnels and rooms. So entire communities began working together to create underground refuges where they could hide during attacks. Derinkuyu wasn't built overnight. It took generations of people working together, expanding and improving the city over hundreds of years. Fathers would teach their sons how to carve rock. Mothers would teach their daughters how to survive underground. Each generation made the city a little bigger, a little better, a little more secure. When Arab raiders would sweep through the region above ground, entire communities would simply vanish. One day there might be a thriving village on the surface, and the next day it would be completely empty. The raiders would find houses, churches, and farms, but no people. It was like everyone had just disappeared into thin air. That's because they had literally gone underground. Hundreds of families would retreat into Derinkuyu, sealing the entrances behind them. They could survive down there for months if necessary, waiting for the danger to pass before returning to the surface. This strategy worked incredibly well for several centuries. The underground cities became so sophisticated that people could live normal lives while hiding from their enemies. Children were born, raised, and educated underground. People worked, worshipped, and built communities, all while remaining completely invisible to the world above. But Derinkuyu wasn't the only underground city. Archaeologists have now discovered over 200 underground cities in this region of Turkey. Some are small, designed for just a few families. Others are massive complexes that could house thousands of people. They were all connected by tunnels, creating a vast underground network. The most incredible part? Many of these cities were connected to each other. People could travel underground from city to city without ever coming to the surface. It was like an ancient subway system, but instead of trains, there were walking tunnels that could safely transport entire families between underground communities. The level of cooperation required to build and maintain these cities is mind-blowing. We're talking about entire regions of people working together on a construction project that spanned centuries. Everyone had to contribute, carving rock, hauling away debris, designing ventilation systems, planning food storage. As time went on and the political situation above ground became more stable, many people gradually returned to surface living. The underground cities were used less frequently, mainly during times of specific danger or conflict. By around the 1400s, most of the underground cities were largely abandoned as permanent residences. Some were still used as temporary shelters during times of trouble, but the daily life that had sustained these underground communities for centuries was coming to an end. The cities were slowly forgotten. Entrances were sealed or hidden. Local knowledge of their existence faded as older generations passed away, and younger generations focused on life above ground. What had once been bustling underground metropolises became silent, empty spaces waiting in darkness. That's why the 1963 discovery was so shocking. Derinkuyu had been sitting there, perfectly preserved, like a time capsule waiting to tell its incredible story. All the tools, pottery, and personal belongings left behind painted a picture of a civilization that had chosen survival over surrender. Today, Derinkuyu stands as a testament to human ingenuity, cooperation, and determination. It shows us what people can accomplish when they work together facing impossible odds. It's a reminder that sometimes the most incredible solutions come from the most desperate circumstances. What amazes you most about the story of Derinkuyu? The incredible engineering? The cooperation between generations? Or the sheer determination to survive? Share your thoughts in the comments below. So there you have it, the incredible true story of Derinkuyu, the underground metropolis that stayed hidden for over 1,000 years. From one man's accidental discovery to the revelation of an entire civilization that chose to live in darkness rather than surrender their freedom. Think about everything we've covered today. The mind-blowing engineering that created ventilation systems still working after a millennium. The daily lives of 20,000 people who made their homes in carved stone rooms. The incredible cooperation between generations who spent centuries building and improving their underground refuge. And the desperate circumstances that drove entire communities to disappear from the surface world. Derinkuyu isn't just an archaeological wonder. It's a story about human resilience, ingenuity, and the lengths people will go to protect their families and beliefs. It challenges everything we think we know about ancient civilizations and shows us that our ancestors were far more capable than we often give them credit for. But here's the thing. Derinkuyu's story isn't over. Archaeologists are still exploring the city, still making new discoveries, still uncovering secrets that have been hidden for centuries. Who knows what incredible revelations are still waiting in the unexplored sections of this underground maze. If you enjoyed diving deep into this incredible piece of history, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. We've got tons more amazing historical mysteries, archaeological discoveries, and mind-blowing stories about ancient civilizations coming your way. And hey, if you're fascinated by underground mysteries like this, you absolutely need to check out our video about the massive tunnel systems discovered under major cities around the world. Trust me, after learning about Derinkuyu, you'll be amazed at what else might be hiding right beneath our feet. I'll put that link in the description below. What other ancient mysteries would you like us to explore? Lost civilizations? Unexplained archaeological discoveries? Ancient engineering marvels? Drop your suggestions in the comments below. Your idea might become our next deep dive investigation. Thanks for joining me on this incredible journey into one of history's most fascinating hidden worlds. Until next time, keep wondering what other incredible secrets are still waiting to be discovered.